Hey guys, tonight we drift softly into the shadowed world of medieval life expectancy, where candle flames flicker in drafty halls and the quiet toll of church bells marks the fleeting years. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past. Comment where you're listening from and what time it is there. Settle in as we wander from cradle to grave, through misty mornings and half-warmed evenings, letting the gentle rhythm of history lull you into peace. Imagine the soft hush of a medieval dawn, breaking over thatched roofs heavy with dew. As the first light touches the cradle where new life begins, dawn of infancy, fragile as morning mist on a village pond. In those early centuries after the fall of Rome, from the 5th to the 15th, when empires crumbled into kingdoms of stone and soil, a child's first breath was a whisper against the winds of fate. The average life expectancy at birth hovered around 30 to 40 years. But oh, how that number deceives, pulled low by the tender ones who slipped away before their first winter's frost. Infant mortality claimed 30 to 40% in those dim-lit birthing chambers, where midwives with calloused hands and herbal pouches worked by rushlight glow, their breaths mingling with the labored gasps of mothers. Picture the humble cottage, walls of wattle and dog breathing with the earth's own dampness. A peat fire sputtering low to ward off chills that seeped through cracks like silent thieves. The newborn swaddled in linen rough as hope itself faced foes unseen. Fevers that bloomed like wild roses and tiny cheeks fluxes of the belly from milk soured by pour. Keeping, or the cruel grip of summers, the flux dysentery whispering through foul waters shared by man and beast. Chronicles from manorial rolls, those parchment ledgers of lords' lands, tell of babes lost to visitation of God. A polite veil over the harsh truths of bacteria unknown and sanitation. But a dream. In England post-Domesday, 1086's Great Survey under William the Norman records hint at populations where 1 in 3 infants faded before naming day, their tiny forms laid in unmarked earth, as bells tolled softly at vespers. Yet some endured, nursed on ale posset, thin gruel of barley and mother's milk flavored with earth's bounty. Wet nurses in noble houses, their own children fostered aside, offered richer fare, but even there, the perils lurked in shadows. Coroner's rolls from later centuries, those meticulous accounts of sudden ends, reveal infants crushed in sleep by feather beds to heavy, or chilled in cradles by winter's breath sneaking under doors. Nutrition was sparse. Peasants' bread of rye, coarse and dark, mashed into pottage with leeks from the garden patch, provided sustenance if the harvest held. But famine's shadow loomed, as in 1315's Great Famine, rain's relentless turning fields to mire, seeds rotting in sodden soil, leaving mothers with breasts dry as autumn leaves. 3 to 4 in 10 children never saw 5 summers. Their small bones unearthed in churchyard digs, teeth barely erupted, telling tales of rickets from sunless huts and vitamin-starved blood. Breathe deep now. Feel the calm settle as we linger on these fragile beginnings. The scent of lavender sachets hung to ward off ills. The murmur of prayers to St. Margaret, patron of childbirth, her image carved rough on wooden beams. Healers brewed feverfew and mugwort teas, steaming in clay pots over embers, But success was fickle. Miracles in survival whispered as divine favor. Class whispered to. Noble infants swaddled in silk, rocked by nurses in tapestry-hung chambers, fared better. Their wet nurses fed on meat and wine, mortality dipping to perhaps 20%. Yet the common folk, 90% of souls, toiled from Bobby's first cry toward a life measured in seasons, not scores of years. Quirky survivals abound. Tales from chronicles of babes born in haylofts during storms, suckled by goats when mothers perished, growing sturdy amid barnyard muck, a subtle nod to nature's wry humor. As the mist lifts slowly, routines emerge in that first year. Mothers bound to fields post-weaning, infants strapped to backs in slings of wool. Lulled by the sway of scythes cutting rye under July sun, dangers multiplied, teething fevers mistaken for teething woes, convulsions from tainted well water bubbling brown with runoff, manorial records from Wareham Percy, a lost Yorkshire village, skeletons whisper of enamel hyperplasia, grooves in baby teeth marking malnutrition's halt to growth. Like paused tree rings in famine years, they ate this mash of peas and beans. Ale weak as prayer, and some lived to toddle. Miracles in the medieval math where averages hid hardy souls. Let the words flow like a slow river now, carrying you deeper. By age 1, survivors faced the weanling's flux. Diarrhea from gruels hastily made. Pots unscrubbed sharing space with chamber pots emptied into streams. Smallpox lurked too. Pox blooming pustules that scarred or slew, introduced centuries prior. Ravaging hamlets where one case ignited chains of grief. Yet resilience bloomed herbal remedies, willow bark for pains, elderflower cordials against coughs, passed mouth to ear in evening gatherings by hearth fire's glow. The church bells pealed for baptisms survived. A quiet victory over odds stacked like winterwood. Expand the canvas. Regional whispers vary. In warmer climes of Italy or Provence, olive oils and fruits offered edges against scurvy's gums bleeding soft, while northern mists of England bred tuberculosis in crowded cots. The white plague wasting we lungs. Domesday's tallies, 268,980 for heads of households, imply populations strained by losses unseen, births chasing deaths in eternal balance. Nobles chronicled heirs lost, like planigenic babes fading in cradles of state. Their passing noted in annals with sorrow scripted fine. Daily rhythms soothed the fearful. Rocking songs hummed low. Lullaby, my sweet. Sleep through the night so deep. Rhythms echoing generations. Toys crude drattles of sheep bone. Dolls of straw distracted from itches of scabies or lice nests in hair unwashed. Fathers carved whistles from reed. Moments of joy amid toil. But peril persisted. Accidents in half-proximal play. Skulls from pottage pots swinging low. Recorded in rolls as fell into fire. By 2 years, the sturdy walked village lanes muddy with pig trots, learning perils for sand. Ergotism from rye gone bad, St. Anthony's fire burning limbs numb, claimed clusters in damp harvests. Malaria in fens, ags shaking tiny frames. Yet some thrived, cheeks rosy from garden kale, bones lengthening toward childhood's gate. Subtle sarcasm in survivals. They drank ale from dawn, safer than water's brew of death, and lived proving fortitude in fermentation, Flow on, gentle listener, as infancy's mist thins toward childhood's hidden perils. But as seasons turned with the wheel of the year, those who crossed the threshold into boyhood or girlhood faced new shadows in the lengthening days. Herbs are like little superheroes when it comes to healing seriously. Just think about a warm bowl of nettle soup, bursting with iron and all those good vibes. The elders would savor every spoonful, their few teeth and wise gums sharing tales of survival that warmed our hearts. Food is more than just fuel. It's a treasure chest of stories and memories, right? Each bite brings back laughter, struggles, and wisdom from the past. It's like a cozy hug that connects us to our roots. And let's not forget about how these herbs can boost our health, too. It's pretty magical how something so simple can pack such a punch, don't you think? Seasonal shifts were a big deal back then. Llamas brought fresh oats, while Michaelmas meant salted pork to prepare for the lean winter months. And those spring greens, bitter dandelions, were the go-to to chase away the pallor of scurvy. Meanwhile, nobles were feasting in flamboyant style, indulging in marzipan sculptures shaped like graceful swans, and rare roasted cygnets turning on. Spit sounds like a royal feast, doesn't it? But let's not forget about the downside. Gluttony often led to gout, with kings like Henry VIII suffering from their extravagant diets. Famine was a harsh reality too, like the relentless rains of 1315 that drowned fields, forcing people to mix fern roots into their bread. And while whispers of cannibalism flickered in dark corners, post-plague life saw a slight bloom with better wages and salted herring. Herbs were seriously a big deal for healing, right? Just picture those yummy nettle soups, bursting with iron. The elders loved every spoonful, their few teeth and wise gums sharing stories of resilience and survival that warmed everyone's hearts. As we trace these flickering candles through medieval shadows, from misty beginnings to frost-covered graves, let's reflect on the winds of time and the soft tolling of distant bells. If you enjoyed this journey, like and subscribe for more nighttime drifts through history's quiet valleys. Share your dreams, awakened or the slumbers deepened, in the comments. Now, let's fade out with the gentle murmurs of a river and those distant chimes. Good night. Common levies, billmen pulled from the fields, fell victim to arrows tipped with bodkin, piercing breastplates and dashing hopes for the healthy to return home limping. Gender wove its own subtle differences. Men were felled by the toil of the fields or war's harsh bite, while women faced the repeated trials of childbirth. Yet, records suggest a surprising parity: widows managing bustling inns well into their 60s. Vibrant and spry, coroners noted a visitation that masked domestic violence, but many endured, spinning tales of resilience by their looms. The Crusades called souls eastward, with knights returning scarred from the sands of the Saracens or fever-stricken from the heat of Antioch. Lifespans were often cut short by exotic diseases. Pilgrims, too, faced their trials, trudging along the Compostela trails, their blistered feet earning them the St. James shell badge as a testament to their slow, arduous journeys. Yet, the healing arts offered hope. Yarosovs could staunch green using sword cuts, and willow spins could straighten snapped bones. Long livers bore their scars with pride, sharing sagas of survival that spun through the evenings. As battles faded into memory, the nuances of nutrition began to nourish the persistent spirit of those who remained. Herbs are like little superheroes in the world of healing, right? Just picture a warm bowl of nettle soup, brimming with iron and nutrients. The elders would savor every spoonful, their few teeth and wise gums sharing incredible tales of survival and resilience. It's really heartwarming how food can carry so many stories and memories, don't you think? Each bite not only nourishes the body, but also connects us to our roots and traditions. It's like a warm hug from the past, reminding us of the strength and wisdom of those who came before us. Isn't that just amazing? Seasonal shifts were a big deal back then. Llamas brought fresh oats, while Michaelmas meant salted pork to prepare for the lean winter months. And those spring greens, bitter dandelions, were the go-to to chase away the pallor of scurvy. Meanwhile, nobles were feasting in flamboyant style, indulging in marzipan sculptures shaped like graceful swans, and rare roasted cygnets turning on spitz sounds like a royal feast, doesn't it? But let's not forget about the downside. Gluttony often led to gout, with kings like Henry VIII suffering from their extravagant diets. Famine was a harsh reality too, like the relentless rains of 1315 that drowned fields, forcing people to mix fern roots into their bread. And while whispers of cannibalism flickered in dark corners, post-plague life saw a slight bloom with better wages and salted herring. Herbs are like little superheroes when it comes to healing seriously. Picture this: a warm bowl of nettle soup, bursting with iron and nutrients. The elders would savor every spoonful, their few teeth and wise gums sharing stories of survival and resilience over the years. Isn't it incredible how food can carry so many rich tales? Each bite isn't just nourishment. It's a connection to the past, reminding us of traditions and the wisdom of those who came before us. You know what I mean? It's like every bowl holds a piece of history, right? As we trace these flickering candles through medieval shadows, from misty beginnings to frost-covered graves, let's reflect on the winds of time and the soft tolling of distant bells. If you enjoyed this journey, like and subscribe for more nighttime drifts through history's quiet valleys. Share your dreams awakened or the slumbers deepened in the comments. Now, let's fade out with the gentle murmurs of a river and those distant chimes. Good night. Whispers of plague winds gathered in the east, carrying unseen seeds of sorrow across trade roads dusty and dim, heralding plagues, famines, and the great levelers that brushed all souls with equal chill. Noble lifespans diverged stark from common folk, their paths lit by tapers beeswax sweet while peasants trudged by tallows sputter. Yet death's scythe cared little for rank when shadows lengthened. Nobles cradled in privilege from birth often danced longer on life's stage. 50 to 60 years not uncommon if plagues spared. As peerage rolls attest earls and barons outliving villeins by decades. In parchment lineages traced back to conquest's blood. Envision the noble hall at eventide. Tapestries heavy with woven hunts flickering in draught from arrow slits. Lords in velvet doublets supping venison from silver platters. Trenchers of monchet bread fine as snow. Diets balanced by physicians, law moderation preached amid excess. Salads of cress and lettuce against fluxes. Theriac electuaries against poisons, fancy fret. Daily pursuits buffered blows. Hunts on horseback through dew-misted parks. Falcons' bells tinkling faint. Building vigor in frames fed on partridge and pike. Women of rank, gowned in surcoat silk, oversaw still rooms fragrant with rose attar and chamomile. Their child beds attended by learned leeches who washed hands in vinegar sharp. Lowering fever's toll, common folk contrasted sharp. Adulthood's grind in fields eternal. Backs bowed under week work for the Lord 3 days ploughing de men. Boonworks at haytime frantic. Bodies war swift. By 35, joints creaked like annoiled gates. Hernias ballooned from harvest strains. Records noting old at 40 in complaints of infirmity. Yet resilience shown peasants' calories from beans and ale outbased nobles' gouty feasts. Some reaching 60s hail, as Warren Percy's graves reveal skeletons upright. Teeth worn but spines straight. Plagues equalized ruthlessly. Before 1348's Black Death, waves like 1300's outbreaks culled 10 to 20%. Buboes blackening groins in huts and keeps alike. Miasma theory blaming bad air from swamps unseen. The great mortality arrived via galleys from Crimea. Rats disembarking in Dorset ports. Fleas leaping to human warmth. Mortality 30 to 60%. Villages emptied. Fields fallow under raven cries. Life expectancy plunged. But survivors inherited genes robust. Their descendants living longer. Post-plague, bones from East Smithfield showing fewer frail elders pre-blight. Famine's amplified woes. 1315's famine, rains unending. Livestock bloating dead in pastures drowned. Cannibalism's grim rumors in Annals Polini. Adults wasting to husks. Expectancy shaved years in ripple effects. Quirky survivals. Nobles fleeing to manors remote. Peasants foraging acorns leached of tannin bitter. Living to recount in half tales hushed. Sensory veil. Plague carts rumbling slow at midnight. Bring out your dead, a murmur distant. Incense smokes curling from flagellant processions. Bells tolling ceaseless soft. Healers failed, often bloodletting weakening frames. Uroscopy jars held to candlelight revealing humours foul. Yet some endured, Black Death granting immunity's legacy. Lifespans rebounding to 35 to 40 at birth post 1350. Nobles rebuilt with labour scarce, wages rising, lifespans edging up via better bread. Commoners seized chances, bonds loosening. Twilight perils awaited the grind's toll mounting. As embers dimmed and hearths grown cold, twilight years, if they came, whispered of final fades. Whispered of final fades in the gathering dusk of twilight years, if they came at all. When hair silvered like hoarfrost on ancient boughs, and steps slowed to the measured pace of churchyard pots. For the rare souls who navigated infancy's mists, youth's thorns, and adulthood's relentless foe. Old age arrived not as myth's feeble dotage, but a sturdy season for many 60, 70, even beyond. Especially among nobles whose records gleam with longevity's quiet defiance. Graves from monastic sites, like those at Canterbury, yield skeletons of peasants past 60. Joints arthritic, but frames enduring. Teeth ground to stubs from lifelong grit, yet jaws set firm. Picture the elder by cottage door, bench worn smooth by generations, pipe smoke curling lazy into autumn air crisp with falling leaves. Daily rounds channeled, light tasks like weeding herb plots fragrant with thyme and hyssop, or minding grandbabe on knee. Stories spun soft of harvests past and saints' interventions. Nutrition thinned, but wise soups strained fine for toothless gums. Milk from house cow warmed gentle, honey drizzled for sweetness rare. Aches chronicled in rolls, infirm with age, excused from boon service after 60. Granite lords pity in cottages rent-free. Nobles aged in solar splendor, chairs canopied with velvet deep. Pages fetching peasants spiced with ginger warm against winter's bite. Physicians prescribed baths in milk and herbs, massages with oils olive sweet. Extending spans Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine outliving husbands to 82. Her wisdom courted in courts afar. Diets moderated late. Fish on Fridays fast. Almonds ground for vigor fading. Sensory comforts abounded. Gardens tended slow. Roses perfuming pots gravelled fine. Harps strung soft for evening repose. Diseases of decline crept insidious. Cataracts clouding eyes like morning fog on near. Hearing dulled to bells' distant peal. Gout twisted nobles' toes in chambers furred with rugs. Persian, peasants' rheumatism from damp fields aching bone deep. Cancer lurked unnamed. Tumors swelling silent till burst. Yet long livers dotted chronicles. Peasants like the hail-sown elder at 70. Manorial notes praising his counsel's sage. Bishops like William of Wykeham to 76. Building legacies in stone. Quirky ends. Falls from ladders gathering apples late. Or old age in rolls. Peaceful slips into eternal hush. Faith-framed finale last rites, with viaticum on tongue. Candles clustered, kin murmuring psalms low. Twilight brought reflection. Lives measured not in years alone, but hearths warmed, fields sown, souls shepherded. As the wheel turned full circle, rare long livers stood as beacons myths busted, averages unveiled. Averages unveiled in the soft glow of chronicles yellowed with time. Where rare long livers emerged like stubborn oaks amid storms felled lesser trees. Their spans defying the medieval norm with quiet tenacity. Consider Eleanor of Aquitaine, queen whose life spanned 82 years from 1122 to 1204, outlasting to Kings Louis VII and Henry II her days a tapestry of crusades. Courts and captivity endured with spirit unbroken. Retiring to Fontevraud Abbey, where vines whispered against stone walls in her final repose. Or Henry I of England, reigning till 56 in 1135. His table famed for lampreys lampered, though excess felled him soft into death's arms. Peasants, to boasted hidden centurions, though records scarcer than lordly annals. Manorial rolls from 14th century Essex note Agnes at Well, 70-odd when plague winds howled. Her herbal lore sustaining kin through fluxes dire. Garden plots blooming resilient with coltsfoot for coughs and betony for wounds. Quirky survivors pepper tales. The anonymous monk of Evesham chronicled to 90s in the 12th century. His days bent over vellum by cloister candlelight. Inks sharp with gallnut tang. Eyes sharp till end. Nobles like William Marshall, Earl of Pembroke, jousted vigorous at 70 in 1217 tourneys. Lance splintering under sun slant, proving vigor in veins royal bred. These outliers shattered midst the 30-year average a cradle-grave deceit. True EO life expectancy at birth low by infant tolls, yet E10 at age 10 soaring to 50s. A 30 past 70 for some. Domesday's echoes, 1086's census of souls sturdy, imply populations bolstered by adults hail. Churchyard digs confirming elders 10 to 20% over 50 in plague pre-times. Sensory echoes, elders' tales by Yule logs crackling merry, mulled ale steaming spiced. Grandchildren wrapped as ghosts of famines past danced in flames. Famine's tested longevity's thread, 1315's deluge drowned hopes. Yet survivors like Irish annals elders, subsisting on famine bread of acorn flour leached slow in streams babbling cold, endured to guide replanting under skies clearing hesitant. Plagues post-1348 paradoxically lengthened lives, fewer mouths, thinned competition. Wages bought meats richer, immunity bred in bloodlines resilient. Daily wisdom of the aged, proverbs passed like heirlooms. Sow early, reap full. Gardens coaxed to yield late carrots, sweet crisp. Healers revered, their poultices of comfrey's soothing aches. Time worn, subtle sarcasm. Nobles glutted to graves early. Peasants lean and lived longer moderation's wry gift. Yet all paths converged at grave's edge. Candles brief as breath, with the palace's rhythms pulsing like a distant heartbeat. Nefertari's afternoons often dissolved into scholarly pursuits, unrolling papyri in airy pavilions where scribes copied the contendings of Horace and Seth, their tales of divine squabbles recited in tones as soothing as wind through reeds. She favored the tale of sinew, its lines evoking exile's pang softened by homecoming her finger. Following the elegant cursive script illuminated by honeyed lamplight at dusk. Religious devotion peaked in mystery plays reenacting Osiris's death. Actors in green Millahite masks gliding through torchlit halls Nefertari as Isis. Binding the dismembered god with linen strips scented in myrrh the resin's balsamic depth. Filling the air like a lover's sigh. Offerings of milk from sacred cows, their bells tinkling softly as they grazed temple meadows. Poured into libation tanks carved with serpents drinking eternally. Children's education deepened into astronomy nights spent on rooftops charting Sirius's heliacal. Rising its blue fire heralding flood pointers, naming decans whose hours governed fate. Princesses learned midwifery from priestesses of Hecate, frog-headed goddess, handling clay models slick with oil simulations. Royal hunts provided meditative motion, chariots bounding over desert fringes, bows twanging to fell oryx whose eyes gleamed amber in the fall. Feasts followed antelope haunches slow-roasted over acacia coals, meat tender, and spiced with cumin seeds popping in the heat. Diplomacy's pen flowed to Murrow King's assurances of grain shipments inked on durable hide seals, depicting her as a sphinx trampling chaos. Subtle royal dramas involved a Hittite bride's integration. Nefertari gifting her ebony combs carved with protective urae, easing tensions like balm on a chafe. Health maintenance included yoga-like poses from Hatha text's precursors. Stretches before dawn to limber limbs, accompanied by breaths sensed to Nile's flow. Infusions of senna pods cleared toxins, their bitter wash followed by carob pods' natural sweet. QV66's painted paradises depict Elysian fields, Nefertari netting fish in lotus marshes, scales iridescent in fresco, pillars ensuring stability, funerary boats laden with provisions sail celestial Niles, oars dipped in lapis waves. Legacy echoes and replicas her Abu Simbel face digitized, 3D printed for museums. Allowing touches of ancient nobility, scholarly debates on her DNA, from tomb trace fibers, ponder African roots, her beauty a bridge across sands as shadows lengthen. Her story's calm envelops us further, as the Nile's eternal murmur underscores her tale. Nefertari's evenings often turned to music's embrace. Sessions in moonlit colonnades where harpists plucked gut strings tuned to pentatonic scales. Notes cascading like petals from acacia trees, she hummed along to songs from the harper's lute. Tuned lyrics pondering life's brevity. Enjoy the day, fill your house with bread. Voice is blending with cricket's chorus from the garden fringes. Piety's private face shone in amulet crafting, overseeing goldsmiths, hammering pectorals. With her image flanked by basted cats, eyes of obsidian winking mysteriously, chains fine linked to drape like liquid sunlight. Pilgrimages to Dendera meant days on the river winds, filling sails with hypnotic flaps. Arriving to Hafa's Mamisi, where birthrights invoked fertility for the land. Children's rites of passage included circumcision ceremonies for boys, blades of flint swift, and sacred underlinen screens, followed by feasts of honeyed pastries shaped as eyes of Horus. Daughters received their first sidelocks shorn in temple locks of bees-locks offered to the dwarf god. Amid chants that echoed like soft thunder, seasonal labors she patronized, irrigation canals dredged by corvée levees, their baskets of silt. Thudding rhythmically water wheels creaking under her inspecting gaze. Festivals of men's phallic standards paraded, her presence blessing potency with shaken sistra. Air electric with fertility's promise. Diplomatic missives to punt chronicled my harvests. Responses laden with leopards pacing cages on ships, their spots dappled in whole shadows. Intrigue's gentle barbs appeared in anonymous papyri lampooning court favorites. Her intervention a quiet erasure by scribal flame. Health's arcane arts involved bloodletting with leeches from sacred pools, their suckles drawing impurities, skin left pale and renewed. Dream incubations in Serapeum precincts yielded visions of golden falcons, portents poured over, with oracular oils rubbed into palms. QV66 culminates in the lowest chamber's solar bark, Nefertari standing eternal amid crew of gods. Sails billowed in painted winds toward dawn's rebirth. Inscriptions proclaim no evil befalls her, spells weaving protective nets finer than spider silk. Modern reverence restores her temple at Seshot's nod. Conservators misting frescoes with distilled water, colors awakening like spring along the Nile. Her story inspires sleep's calm, a queen whose life flows unending. Candles brief as breath flickering low in chapels stone-vaulted, where myths of medieval brevity unraveled thread by gentle thread in the lamplight of ledgers, and bones unearthed. The enduring fable of universal 30-year spans crumbles under scrutiny pulled low by cradles emptied swift. Yet adults thrived longer than tales tell. Manorial records revealing villeins harvesting to 50s routine. Nobles to 60s graced by physicians' arts. Coroners' rolls, parchment scrolls of mishaps tallied. show lives cut mid-stride less by age than accident's whim or plague's gale. Averages masking multitudes hail, deepen into disease's domain, those silent reapers stalking lanes muddy and halls grand. Leprosy, the white thief, scaled skin numb as winter bark, bell-rung warning by sufferers hooded. Laser houses fogged with incense thick to mask rot's sweet. Tuberculosis hollowed lungs wet with phlegm coughed nightly. Consumption wasting frames to shadows pacing cloisters chill. Dysentery, flux green and griping, flowed from wells tainted by cesspits uphill. Bowels twisting like ropes frayed. No germ theory graced their world, miasmas blamed. Airs corrupted by comets trailed ominous, or swamps belching vapors foul. Peasant remedies rose earthy, garlic crushed pungent against infections creep. Willow bark decoctions sipped steaming for fevers burning. Nobles summoned surgeons with astrolabes charting stars for bleedings propitious. Leeches fat on blood drawn to balance humors slick. Quirky failures abounded. King John felled by dysentery 1216 after herring surfeit. His end hastened by bad fruit in chronicles wry. Childbed woes for women, retained placentas festering. Claimed post-labor in locks dark with clotted gore. Regional shades varied. Malaria's ag-shook fenwellers in East Anglia marshes. Tertian fevers recurring rhythmic as tides lapping. Ergotism convulsed rye-eaters in damp summers, St. Vitus dance twitching limbs gangrenous black. Post-Black Death, survivors' genes favored robust immune, expectancy edging up. Cemeteries like Montpelier yielding elders aplenty. Sensory shroud, herb gardens bomb against despair. Lavender pillows easing sleep plague tossed. Church bells tolling matins soft through mist. Faith, fortified Saint Rock invoked against pestilence. His dog image carved on lintels low. Yet amid reapers, joy's flickered weddings danced under maypoles green. Under maypoles green and ribboned bright against spring skies washed pale. Where daily joys pierced the veil of toil and trial like sunbeams. Through stained glass church windows, painting lives in hues warm despite spans brief. Weddings wove communities close. Brides in kirtles best circled by Morris dancers, bells jingling faint. Ale flowing free from barrels hooked tight. Feasts of pork pasties flaky, and mead honey sweet lingering on tongues till dawn. Such mirth marked milestones, expectancy's mouth softened by moments. Etched deep in memory's quiet folds, peasant joys rooted simple earthbound. Harvest-home suppers with tables laden under barn beams. Thatched fresh cider pressed tart from apples windfall gathered songs rising harmonious as the reek of new-mown hay. Children's games on greens village-wide. Hoodmen's blind stumbling laughter shy, or shinny sticks clacking on leather bowls stuffed wool. Elders presided, tales of Robin Hood arrow true, or fairies ring dancing in moonlight silver. Breaths hushed around fires peat-fed glowing. Nobles' delights soared grander. Tournaments clashed steel on shield ringing across tiltyards. TURF smooth. Ladies tossing favors silk streamered to knights helmed plume high. Banquets in halls wainscoted oak. Minstrels lutting ballads sweet of Tristan lost. Spices wafting cinnamon warm from subtlety ships sailed sugar fine. Hunt mornings broke fast, with horns winding low through copses, dew-heavy hounds baying melodic. Venison haunch reward roasted slow. Class deepened divides in these gleams. Peasants' church ales funding repairs bell tower tall. Nobles progresses through lands loyal alms tossed largesse like from palfrey backs. Yet shared the wake nights after burial. Dirges low giving way to toasts for souls ascended. Candles guttering gold on faces tear-streaked. Seasonal wheels turned joys rhythmic. Yule logs dragged home crackling loud. Wassail bowls spiced clove deep past neighborly. Llamas loaves blessed priestly at harvest's height. First fruits offered altar-ward. Such anchors held against expectancy's ebb. Lives full despite years few. Yet as joys faded into memory's hush, the church's role in measuring time eternal beckoned. Beckoned with bells' bronze voices calling faithful to vespers calm. The church's role in measuring time eternal weaving through every breath. And burial in the medieval weave. Parish priests, robed woolen coarse, or linen fine, tallied baptisms in registers parchment bound. Noting births as souls claimed for eternity, their inks black as fate from oak galls brewed. Churchyards swelled with graves layered deep, markers mossed whispering names faded. Expectancy etched in stones weathered. Here lies Thomas, 48 years, called hence by God 1321. Rites framed life's arc baptismal fonts, cold water poured over brows downy. Christening ales flowing joyous after. Marriages bands called thrice from pulpits oak carved. Hands joined priestly under eaves that dripped with recent rain. Last rites viaticum borne on tongues pale. Extreme unction oils scented charism anointing brows furrowed. Bells tolled hours canonical. Matins to compline mocking days short as dewdrops. Church-fed bodies too. Tithes granaried full for poor relief in dearth years. Soup kitchens steaming barley thick for famines gaunt. Hospitals like St. Bartholomew's in London sheltered aged infirm. Beds straw-mounded under roofs leaded grey. Monks murmuring psalms, soothing as waves lapping. Medicine mingled faith and herb. Monastic gardens bloomed fever-few daisy bright for headaches throbbing. Valerian roots dug deep for sleeps unrestful. Barber surgeons trepan skulls for evils pressing. Saws rasping bone amid moans muffled. Plague doctors beaked masked with herbs lavender stuffed against miasma foul. Lances lancing buboes weeping black. Faith fortified spans short. Pilgrimages to Canterbury trails trod dusty. Badges leaden pinned proud. Endurance bought indulgences pardoning. Saints invoked Saint Apollonia toothache. Saint Blaise throat sore. Quirky survivals. Relic kisses granting years extra. Tales swear. Yet beyond cloister walls, trades and crafts shaped days labor long. Labor long amid the clang of hammers on anvils glowing cherry red. And the whir of looms shuttling wool-dyed woad blue. Trades and crafts shaping days into spans measured by hands calloused. And eyes keen to spike years quiet creep. Smiths bent over forges bellows fed roaring soft. Forging plowshares and horseshoes curved just. Their arms corded strong from hammers swung dawn to dusk. Living to 50's hail if sparks spared eyes. Apprentices indentured young learned fire's secrets. Masters grey-bearded passing law in grunts low over quenching troughs steam-shrouded. Weavers' cottages hummed warp-weighted looms creaking rhythmic. Women feet pedaled warping threads fine-spun from sheep's wool washed river clean. Patterns emerging chevron sharp. For market bolt and broad, crafts extended lives through skill-prized tailors stitching coat-hardies. padded bombast stuffed for warmth winter deep. Dyers steeping vats, madder red staining hands permanent. Regional tapestries varied expectancies. Hue, England's clay soils bred hardy villeins. Domesday tallying labourers stout post-conquest. Italy's sunnier climes, olive groves terraced steep. Diet's oil-drizzled lengthening bones Venetian doges to 70s routine. France's Loire valleys, wine cellars cool yielding vintages robust. Peasants quaffing small sustaining through Ag's marshborn. Scandinavia's fjords cold-forged Vikings turn farmers. Sagas noting elders scaldic to 60s. Mead halls echoing songs sea-salted. Urban trades quickened pulses. London's bakers kneading dough Don needed yeasty. Ovens brick-arched baking monchet for lords. Expectancy edged lower by airs thick soot choked. Butcher's shambles blood-scented hued beef haunches ox fresh. Plagues from awful tossed Thames ward culled swift. Joys in craft. Guild feasts Michaelmas held. Mystery plays staged, wagons wheeled and acting know as floodwaters splashing mirthful. Elders oversaw, wisdom in wrinkles advising apprentices green. As crafts faded into evening's hush, wars and wounds shadowed spans. In the quiet of night, as the palace lamps burned low with flickering sesame oil, Nefertari's role deepened into the sacred heart of Ramesses' reign, her influence rippling outward like circles from a pebble dropped in a still pool. Nubian campaigns drew the court southward, the royal flotilla slicing through waters alive with the splash of fish scales, glinting like scattered silver under the sun. Abu Simbel rose from the cliffs there, not in haste, but over decades of patient chisel work quarries, echoing with the soft ring of copper tools on sandstone, dust settling like veils on workers' shoulders. Nefertari's colossus, 30 meters tall beside her husband's, gazes eternally over the Nile's bend. Her serene face carved with such precision that shadows play across her lips at dawn, as if whispering spells of protection. Inscriptions there proclaim her one for whose sake the sun shines. A poetic nod amid the desert's vast hush, where winds carry the faint salt of Lake Nasser and the bloom of desert flowers. After rare rains, life in Nubia unfolded in rhythms sensed to the cataract's roar, distant but ever present, like a god's steady breath. The royal party lodged in rock-cut villas, their interiors cooled by drafts through alabaster lattices, scented with resins from Punsmer groves. Nefertari oversaw tribute collections gold dust panned from rivers, its metallic tang sharp in the air, ivory tusks stacked like pale monoliths, ebony logs dark and smooth as polished obsidian. Diplomacy with local chiefs involved feasts under torchlight, where she offered linen garments dyed in royal blues, their folds whispering as they were accepted with bowed heads. Subtle court dramas played out. Rival queens sent gifts laced with envy, but Nefertari's poise remained, her laughter a soft chime over the clink of gold armbands. Back in Thebes, her piety shone in temple dedications, each stone laid with rituals that stretched into moonlit hours. The temple at Abu Simbel's inner sanctum aligned, so that on February 22nd and October 22nd sunbeams pierce to illuminate her, and Ramesses alongside the god-star Ra-Horakhti Amen, and tiny Khonsu left in shadow a cosmic joke whispered among priests. She processed there in her chariot, linen canopy shading her from the blaze. horses' hooves thudding softly on packed earth, dust rising in golden clouds. Offerings poured libations of milk and honey, pooling sweetly on altars carved with her cartouche. The air thick with chants invoking Mutt's nurturing wings. As the years deepened like wine in amphory, Nefertari's children matured, their paths intertwining with the throne's divine weave. Princess Bintenef, named for the sweet goddess, grew into a mirror of her mother. Her marriage to Ramesses a union of custom, sealing bloodlines in quiet ceremonies amid the harem's lotus bonds. Sons like Amenhotep trained in warcraft, but under Nefertari's eye, they learned mercy to visiting healing temples where she distributed amulets against scorpions. Their carnelian glow warm in small palms. The nursery's scents lingered in memory, milk simmering with dates. The powdery down of fledglings hatched in palace aviaries, gifted to the young royals. Health whispers through her story, like a faint breeze midlife brought no recorded plagues. Though the era's ailments loomed, schistosomiasis from Nile waters, its itch subdued by natron baths, eye strains from coal rituals, soot, and galena ground into pastes that stung yet protected. She consulted physicians with recipes from the Eber's papyrus remedies of willow bark for fevers, its bitterness masked in beer, honey plasters for wounds, drawing out impurities under linen wraps. Dreams of falcons presaged her vigor, interpreted as Horus's favor, while amulets of bees. The dwarf god grinned from her chambers, warding household spirits with his leonine roar silenced to a purr. Tomb preparations began in the Valley of the Queens, 6 hewn into golden limestone cliffs, its entrance framed by pylons where winds moaned through cracks like ancestral sighs. Artisans, generations deep in craft, sketched outlines with charcoal on damp plaster, then incised with bronze chisels, the rasp echoing softly in torchlit tunnels. Nefertari oversaw designs, her finger tracing vignettes of her journey to the afterlife blue lotus ceilings, evoking the underworld sky. Walls blooming with painted gardens where mandrakes and lotuses defy death's desert. The air in those depths carried the chalky scent of fresh-cut stone, mingled with workers' sweat and the oil of lamps fueled by castor fat. Daily rituals in the royal residence continued their soothing cadence. Mornings commenced with ablutions in a bathhouse of rose granite, water scented with myrtle and jasmine petals floating like stars on the surface. Slaves pouring from ewers with a gentle splash. She donned calasiris of sheer linen, pleats falling like water over her form, adorned with a broad collar of gold chevrons and turquoise beads that clicked softly with movement. Breakfast in the peristyle court, Emma bread torn by hand, its crust yielding to reveal steam-kissed crumb, cheese from the dairy herds, creamy and sharp. Fresh dates, their skins bursting with syrupy flesh. Afternoons brought audiences in the throne room. Pillars soaring like bundled papyrus stems painted in verdant greens. Petitioners approaching on knees worn smooth from obeisance. A widow from the village sought grain from the royal store's Nefertari nodded, her voice a murmur over the scribe's reed pens scratching allocations on Astroka shards. Diplomacy extended to letters sealed with her cartouche, sent to Mitanni princesses. Rolls of papyrus bearing wishes for health, inked with wishes for enduring peace. Evenings faded into music harps strung with gut, their tones cascading like rain on leaves. Accompanying tales from the Westcar papyrus recited by blind bards, their voices weaving magic into the lamplight haze. Court intrigue, ever the subtle undercurrent, swirled around her like eddies in the Nile. Ramesses' other consortsize at Nofret, Mothonifer from Hittite alliances circled with their broods, vying for prominence in processions where ankhs and flails were distributed. Nefertari navigated with serene detachment, her love poems to Ramesses a private anchor. To hear your voice is pomegranate wine on my tongue, confided in dear El Medina papyri. Subtle sarcasm attends these rivalries. Monuments proclaim her primacy. Yet minor queens etched their names in quieter corners, like footnotes in eternity. Religion enveloped her, like a protective cloak. Daily offerings are household shrines where statuettes of Tauret suckled. Her hippopotamus form promising safe births long past childbearing. Pilgrimages to Abydos meant journeys by barge, the river's lullaby rocking sleep. Waking to the temple's pylons, where Osiris waited in green-faced serenity, she presented mirrors of polished bronze, their backs engraved with spells for rebirth, reflecting her face amid incense curls that stung, the eyes with sacred smoke. But as the sun climbed higher in the rain's long arc, Nefertari's days in the harem blended oversight with quiet reflection. The air there heavy with the perfume of cultivated jasmine, climbing trellises, its white blooms opening at vespers. She mentored younger wives in the arts of adornment, grinding malachite into green eyeshadow with pestles of lapis, the powder fine as Nile silt, braiding hair with threads of gold and faience beads that tinkled like distant bells. Children played in adjacent courts, their games of Senate boards clacking softly on ebony tables, ivory pieces gliding across squares inked with spells for victory. Sons learned archery in shaded groves, arrows whispering through air scented with olive wood smoke from cook fires, while daughters practiced dances, bare feet patterning sand with rhythmic steps to flute melodies that ebbed like breathing. Expeditions to the turquoise mines of Sarabi el Qadim punctuated the comm. Caravans winding through waters where acacia thorns scratched at linen veils. The promise of gemstones drawing them into Sinai's stark embrace. Nefertari sponsored stelae there, carved with her prayers to Hathor, Lady of the Turquoise. May your cool waters quench the worker's thirst. Inscribed in letters, smooth by wind-polished stone. The mines themselves yawned like underworld mouths. Ladders descending into cool depths where picks rang faintly. Chips of blue-green stone catching torchlight like captive stars. Tribute flowed back, beads strung into pectorals that rested cool against her collarbone. During temple rites, in the heart of Thebes, her patronage birthed shrines to meet at Karnak. Expansions where cranes of palm ribs lifted monolithic gates, their shadows sliding across processional ways paved with quartzite. Dedication ceremonies stretched through nights lit by bonfires, priests chanting the hours of the night from coffin texts. Voices harmonizing with the Nile's nocturnal croaks. She poured milk libations, the liquid foaming white on black granite, its creamy scent mingling with charred offerings of oxen thighs, fat dripping into flames with soft hisses. Personal piety shone in private chapels, where she knelt before Neo's cabinets, housing her Kos statue. anointing it with oils that gleamed like liquid gold on wooden limbs painted in her likeness. Twilight years crept in with the subtlety of lengthening shadows around her 50s. As Ramesses' vigor built ever grander Ramesseums, health ever guarded, faced the era's quiet foes, arthritis, perhaps stiffening joints soothed by hot compresses of fenugreek paste, its mustardy warmth penetrating linen wraps, dental woes from honeyed sweets, eased by rinses of vinegar and salt, puckering the tongue. Myths swirled gently around her, and no poison, no exile, just the natural fade. Perhaps in Pi Ramesses, the new Delta capital with its lakes mirroring palaces under perpetual verdure. Inscriptions hint at frailty, her appearances waning in later monuments. Yet her cottages endure bold. The great beyond beckoned through QV66's deepening corridors, now alive with frescoes blooming in the artist's hands. Entering the tomb, one steps into a symphony of color, the antechamber's starry ceiling. Lapis fields dotted with golden discs, evoking nuts swallowing the sun. Walls depict her offerings to Osiris, arms extended with sistra that shimmered in paint now faded, but once vibrant as fresh henna. The sarcophagus hall plunges deeper, guardians flanking the quartzite coffin, their eyes inlaid with obsidian staring into eternity. Side chambers hold shabdis, tiny servants glazed in turquoise, inscribed to labor for her car. Ovis Nefertari, justified, I wake at the call. Journey vignettes unfold on burial chamber walls Nefertari towed by divinities. Across the underworld river, her barge's prow cutting painted waves, fish darting below in cerulean strokes. 12 hours of the night cycle grace the ceilings, demons with serpents for legs subdued by her spells. The air imagined thick with the tune's sealed perfumes, resins, spices, natron cakes wrapping her form in golden bandages, canopic jars, lids carved as her serene visage, guarded viscera in calcite chests, spells from Book of Gates murmuring protection. The burial was a nocturnal rite, priests chanting amid torch smoke. Her mummy slid into the sarcophagus on rollers greased with cedar oil, echoing softly in the depths. Post-burial, Ramesses' grief etched in monuments a temple at Silsila proclaiming her suite of love, its reliefs showing her eternal youth. Luther's breached 6-6 in antiquity, but fragments endured, a sandal's leather sole, embroidered with her name, canopic stoppers now in museums, their lids gazing sightlessly. Rediscovery in 1904 by Italian explorers revealed frescoes splendor her skin pale ochre, eyes almond with coal lines. Lotus scepters and hands painted so vividly the desert air seemed to carry their freshness. Legacy unfurls like a scroll in the winds of time. Nefertari's name revived in modern whispers. Abu Simbel's rescue during a Swan Dam's rise engineers slicing the Colossi like pastry. Reassembling under concrete domes preserved her gaze over relocated waters. Exhibitions bring her artifacts close. A calcite vase from her tomb, incised with Ramesses' adoration, love poems on a stroker, their ink flaking like autumn leaves. Egyptologists pore over her titles, debating Nubian ties from cranial studies of elite mummies, her possible dark curls evoking southern grace. In popular lore, she stands as Ramesses' true beloved, eclipsing others in verse, and canvas poets liken her to Venus. Though her realm knew Isis's deeper mysteries, temples she touched endure. Bite El Volley's murals, her processions amid Nubian palms, Gurf Hussein, now drowned but remembered in drawings. Her tomb, restored with Japanese care, welcomes visitors into its cool embrace. Frescoes glowing under controlled lights. The scent of conservation waxes mingling with stone's ancient breath. Drifting back into the serene world of Nefertari, let's take a stroll through the palace gardens where she spent those dreamy midday hours. Imagine the soft crunch of crushed quartz under her sandaled feet. The air buzzing with the gentle hum of jewel-winged beetles flitting around the mandevilla vines, which were heavy with sweet nectar. It's such a beautiful scene, right? Among the pomegranate trees, their fruits dangling like ruby lanterns. She found herself lost in thought, tracing her fingers over faded cottages on portable stelae, the warm limestone soaking up the sun's rays. Religious cycles flowed like clockwork, with full moons marking feasts where she donned the vulture cap of Nekbit. Picture her there, wings spread wide in shimmering gold feathers, catching the light just like river scales. Processions to Edfu were a sight to behold, with barge prows shaped like falcons cutting through the mist. Chants rising in the air. Horus victorious, Nefertari justified. It was a time of magic and reverence, where oracles whispered her questions into the dark, and answers drifted back from dream echoes, all mingling with the scent of smoldering mandrake. Children's milestones marked the gentle passage of time. Weddings took place in open-air courts, with garlands of bacede branches arching overhead, while Nile water was sprinkled for purity. You could hear the soft chime of anklets as brides circled sacred fires, a beautiful tradition. And when grandchildren arrived, joy filled the air. Tiny forms swaddled in fine linen, anointed with 7 oils that symbolized completeness. Daily life was rich and varied. From inspecting the production of linenware, bolts of fabric rolled out in light wells, revealing weaves so fine that light danced through them to meals that changed with the seasons. Summer brought chilled melons nestled in wet straw, their flesh bursting with cool sweetness, while winter feasted on geese fattened on sycamore figs, roasted to crispy perfection. Nefertari's diplomacy with Babylon was a fascinating affair, exchanging lapidary arts and sending her beautiful scarab seals to Hammurabi's as preserving handshakes across the ages. Yet, intrigue was never far behind, with rivals erasing monuments, leaving faint chisel marks like scars on temple blocks. Health was a quiet battle, too, with remedies for melancholy bombs made from balm of Gilead resin, massaged into her temples by skilled hands, bringing soothing relief akin to the gentle fog of the Nile. And those tomb wonders? They were breathtaking. Ceiling apes adored the sun disk, their fur rendered in curly strokes, while the judgment scene depicted Anubis weighing her heart, with a feather balancing perfectly on the scale. Isn't it incredible to think about the depth of her life and the stories woven into every moment? Hey guys, tonight we drift softly into the life of Nefertari, the beloved queen whose whispers echo through the sands of time like a faint breeze over the Nile. Imagine settling into your bed, the sheets cool against your skin, as the world outside fades into a gentle hush. Here on Sleepless Historian, we weave these tales not with rush or clamor, but with the slow rhythm of ancient waters lapping at the riverbanks under a canopy of stars. If this calm journey through history helps you slip into dreams, like and subscribe so we can keep wandering these forgotten paths together. Drop a comment below with your location and the time it is for you right now perhaps. Uray in Noldwich under the Dutch twilight, or somewhere across the oceans where dawn is just stirring. Settle in deeper now. Let your eyelids grow heavy as we trace her days from the first hints of dawn in her mysterious beginnings to the eternal twilight of her legacy. Breathe in slowly and out, allowing the story to carry you like a papyrus boat on the Nile's gentle ripples under moonlight. Her earliest whispers in the palace shadows begin not with fanfare, but with the subtle veil of mystery that clings to her like morning mist over the delta. We know so little of Nefertari's birth, around 1290 BCE, in the waning light of the 19th dynasty. Yet that very obscurity invites us to linger in the quiet possibilities. Picture the grand palaces of Thebes, their walls painted in ochres and indigos, where the air carries scents of lotus blossoms unfurling at dawn and the faint, earthy tang of Nile mud baked under its first rays. Was she born into nobility, her cradle rocked by servants whose feet padded softly on cool stone floors? Some whispers from a stock of fragments and temple inscriptions suggest ties to Nubian lands, where the river bends southward, its waters darker, richer, carrying the subtle spice of acacia and myrrh from distant cataracts. Nubian roots, perhaps her name, Nefertari Merimit, meaning the most beautiful, beloved of Mint, hints at a grace that transcended borders. Her skin perhaps kissed by the sun in ways that evoked the southern realms. In those shadowed nurseries, the air would hum with the soft chants of nursemaids, their voices weaving spells of protection over the infant queen-to-be. Linen swaddlings, fine as spider silk, wrapped her tiny form, scented with oils of moringa and castor, pressed from pods gathered at twilight. The palace gardens outside rustled with date palms swaying lazily, their fronds whispering secrets to the wind, while ibises called faintly from the reed beds. No records scream her parentage. Some Egyptologists muse over a noble father from the delta's fertile embrace. Others ponder a mother whose veins carried the blood of Kushite queens, strong and enduring as the black granite of Gebel Barkal. But in this quiet absence, we feel the calm weight of history's restraint. No need for invention, just the gentle drift of what might have been. As the years unfolded like lotus petals in the morning sun, young Nefertari moved through the palace corridors, her bare feet silent on polished limestone, learning the subtle arts of a world ruled by divine order. The air in those halls was thick with incense from kifi burners, a blend of honey, wine, raisins, and resin that curled lazily upward, mingling with the distant lowing of cattle from the temple herds. She would have watched the royal women at their tasks embroidery, with threads dyed in lapis and carnelian hues, their needles piercing linen with rhythmic precision, or the preparation of unguents in alabaster jars, fingers gliding over warm oils infused with mandrake and cinnamon. Subtle sarcasm lingers in the royal dramas even then. Power plays unfolded not in shouts, but in sidelong glances over ivory combs, alliances sealed with a shared cup of cheddar wine, its fruity depth lingering on the tongue like unspoken promises. Tutors, their voices as measured as the Nile's flow, taught her the hieroglyphs that danced across papyrus scrolls, reed pens dipping into black ink. From soot and gum Arabic, scratching tales of gods and pharaohs. Imagine her small hands tracing the ankh, symbol of life, its loop mirroring the river's eternal curve, while outside, the desert winds sighed against the mud brick walls, carrying grains of sand that settled like forgotten dreams. Health in those early years was tended with amulets of faience, turquoise scarabs pressed to her chest, warding off the eye of Set with murmurs of Heka magic. No grand illnesses mar her story, yet just the steady pulse of a girl growing into beauty. Amid the palace as serene rhythms, baths in pools where water shimmered with natron crystals, dissolving into purity, and meals of bread still warm from clay ovens drizzled with honey from hives, buzzing in the palace groves. But as seasons turned with the inundation's patient swell, Nefertari's path drew closer to the young prince who would become Ramesses II. Their meeting, shrouded in the palace's incense-laden haze, feels like destiny's soft hand guiding a feather. Ramesses, born perhaps in 1303 BCE, moved through those same halls, his presence already marked by the falcon-headed scepters of future rule. Love poems later carved in their tombs speak of it tenderly. Your voice is the sweet song of the wild geese, he would write, evoking the birds' calls drifting over the marshes at dawn. In the quiet gardens under sycamore figs whose leaves filtered sunlight into golden motes, they might have walked her hand, brushing his in the custom of betrothal, the air alive, with the hum of bees and the trickle of fountains fed by sacred springs. Marriage came not as a storm, but as the Nile's rise gradual, nourishing. Around her late teens, Nefertari became great royal wife. Her union sealed in rituals where priests chanted from the Book of the Dead, their words rolling like distant thunder muffled by linen veils. The ceremony unfolded in the temple of Ammon at Karnak, torches flickering shadows on colossal columns carved with gods embracing. The scent of myrrh heavy as anointing oils dripped onto their brows. Silks from the Levant, shimmering like captured moonlight, draped her form, and anklets of gold chimed softly with each step. Ramesses' crown soon after his father's passing in 1279 BCE elevated her instantly. Not a shadow queen, but a light beside his throne, her titles multiplying like stars at dusk. Lady of the true land's eye of raw, possessor of divine grace. In the early years of their reign, the royal barge glided southward on the Nile's glassy surface, oars dipping with hypnotic rhythm, while musicians plucked lyres whose notes floated like petals on the breeze. They stopped at Memphis, where the air tasted of dust and pomegranate blossoms, and Nefertari offered bread and beer to Ptah, her gestures precise, her gaze serene. Court intrigues simmered subtly, other wives like Iset Nofret circling like kites in the thermals. But Nefertari's position held firm, her beauty a quiet anchor. Subtle sarcasm colors the histories Ramesses penned odes to her while building monuments for rivals. A royal balancing act as delicate as incense smoke curling toward the heavens. Daily royal life as queen unfolded in layers of ritual, each moment steeped in sensory calm. Dawn broke with the high priest's rival, his bald head gleaming under oil, chanting invocations as Nefertari rose from feather-stuffed linens, slaves fanning her with ostrich plumes that whispered against the air. Breakfast was figs plump with ripeness, their juice-staining fingers pink, and barley cakes soaked in milk from the palace goats. Then to the audience hall where petitioners knelt on rush mats, their pleas murmured low farmers from the black lands seeking irrigation rights. Their voice is carrying the scent of fertile silt. Merchants from Punt with ebony and gold, their skins oiled and dark. She moved through duties with the grace of Hatha, advising on granary allotments, her signet ring pressing wax seals with a soft thud. Afternoons brought the harem's serenity, where she oversaw the weaving of linens fine enough to see the shadow of a god through them, looms clicking like distant rain on palm leaves. Evenings, under starlit skies, Ramesses joined her for meals of roast ibex, its fat sizzling faintly, spiced with coriander from the royal stores. Love infused these hours, poems exchanged on papyrus. Her words to him, "The scent of myrrh is in your hair," read by lamplight, where shadows danced on walls painted with lovers in eternal embrace. Diplomacy called her beyond the palace, her presence a soothing balm in tense negotiations. When Hittite envoys arrived, dusty from desert marches, she hosted banquets where wine from the king's vineyards flowed like the Nile in flood, its bouquet of dates and berries easing barbs. The peace treaty of 1258 BCE, etched on silver tablets now lost to time, bore her subtle influence, her image later carved at Abu Simbel, colossal beside Ramesses, her gaze eternal over the Nubian sands. Travel to those southern temples meant barges laden with offerings, the river's current a lullaby, hippos snorting lazily from reed fringes, crocodiles slipping silently below. Religion and magic wove through her days like threads in a tapestry. As beloved of Mut, she led processions to the goddess's temple at Asheru, bare feet treading sacred sand, priests swinging censers that trailed frankincense veils. Rituals involved the weighing of the car her heart placed on scales against Mat-S feather. Symbolic purity affirmed in chants that echoed off hypostyle halls. Magic amulets, inscribed with spells from the pyramid texts, hung from her neck, their fiance cool against sun-warmed skin. Dreams, interpreted by lector priests over cups of herbal tisans, guided decisions, visions of falcons soaring, portending victories. Children blessed her union, their cries soft echoes in the nursery wings. At least 6 sons and daughters Merengta, Bintenuth, and others filled the palace with pattering feet and laughter muffled by courtyard walls. She nursed them amid linen-draped beds, their tiny fists clutching at beads of lapis, while wet nurses sang lullabies of Osiris's resurrection, voices blending with the coo of doves in the rafters. Education for the royal offspring meant scribes teaching them to read the stars' positions, preparing for divine rule. Those new shadows stretching long across the dew-kissed fields, where little feet pattered in the hush of childhood's hidden perils. The child who survived infancy stepped into a world of whispering winds through thatched eaves, and the earthy scent of turned soil, where life expectancy, if one reached age 5, stretched toward 40 or 50 summers for the fortunate. Yet perils multiplied like shadows at dusk, subtle threats in play and labor that called the young with quiet insistence. Coroner's rolls from 13th century England paint pictures of tumbling into millpens during forbidden frolics or kicks from restless oxen in the byre, ending stories scarce begun. Envision the village green, mud churned soft by bare toes. Children chasing hoops of willow, with under-grey skies heavy with promise of rain. Nutrition steadied, now pottage thickened with beans from the strip fields. Peas porridge in winter's pot, hung over smouldering turves that filled the air with peat's smoky embrace. Peasants' diets, surprisingly balanced in good years, offered beans for protein. Leeks and onions sharp against bland bread, ales yeast warding off deeper ills. But variety was myth. Rye bread gritted with stone from quern mills wore teeth down young, leading to abscesses that throbbed like distant thunder. Those who passed infancy often reached adulthood, averages masking this true 30 at birth, but 45 to 50 if toddlerhood triumphed. Daily rhythms wove safety's fragile web. Dawn chores, gathering eggs from hens scratching in straw-littered coops. The cluck and flutter a morning lullaby. Midday, herding geese to pond edges fringed with rushes. Sticks in hand against fox sly in underbrush. Evenings by hearth, whittling sticks or spinning wool with drop spindles. Fingers learning trades and firelights dance. Yet dangers dogged. Leprosy's slow creep from unwashed shared bowls. Nodules blooming on limbs like frost patterns. Tuberculosis, the king's evil. Hollow chests with night coughs echoing in close cots. Milk from infected cows sealing fates. Famine sharpened these blades. The Great Famine of 1315 to 1317 drenched fields in ceaseless rains, crops moulding in the sodden earth. Bark and roots the desperate fare, children bloating with hunger edema. Skin stretched taut over bones. Mortality surged. Perhaps 10 to 15% of populations, young hit hardest. Their growing frames starved first. Manorial records from estates, like hail-sown chronicle Villene's hearths cold. Offspring listed gone to God in terse script. Quirky tales persist, children surviving on nettle soups. Greens bitter as fate. Emerging weary and wise beyond scant years, a miracle amid the misery. Nobles young fared differently. Tutored in solar runes tapestried with huntsmen bold, diets of capon and verjuice. Mortality lower, but not absent. Childbirth fevers took siblings, or sudden fluxes from overripe fruits at banquets. Chronicles note Edward the First's heirs dwindling, only one surviving to throne amid gilded grief. Sensory world richer. Pomanders of cloves against castle airs thick with rushes rotting beneath foot, physicians bleeding with lancets silver bright. As years accumulated like fallen leaves, play turned perilous. Apprenticeships beckoned by 7 or 8 boys to smithy sparks flying soft as fireflies, hammers ringing rhythmic on anvils hot. Girls to dairy, churning cream to butter, arms aching sweet, but churns tipping scalding milk on feet. Accidents abounded, fingers crushed in looms, falls from haymows during harvest romps. Smallpox parties, deliberate exposures to mild cases, scarred survivors with pits like moon craters, granting immunity's quiet gift. Plagues whispered early to, precursors to the Great Wave. The 1348 Black Death would later shatter all, but antecedent outbreaks, like 1190's waves thinned ranks, buboes swelling groins like dark fruits under fevered skin. Children, clustered in schools rare, but village gatherings, shared lice and ills, measles raging unchecked without vaccine's grace. Yet survivors toughened, bones from sights like Laxton showing healed fractures. Lives pieced from breaks like mended pots. Breathe with the wind now. Feel the calm deepen as routines repeat. Michaelmas fares with gingerbread fairings. Sticky on tongues, All Hallows mumming in masks of soot. Laughter muffled. Herbal wards garlic braids on doors. Sage smokes against ag-lent illusions of control. Subtle sarcasm in records. They worked fields dawn to dusk, ate pottage plain, and reached teens' miracles in medieval measure. Twilight of childhood neared as limbs lengthened. Voices cracked toward the grind of peasant adulthood. In the hush of winter nights, when frost etched panes like silver filigree, and hearth embers glowed like distant stars, the grind of peasant adulthood settled upon shoulders broadened by youth's trials. Those who crossed into the 20s, past childhood's snares, often glimpsed 40 or even 50 years, their lives woven into the manor's rhythm, bodies bent to plough and sickle under skies that wept or smiled indifferently. Peasant days dawned in the pre-light hush, cocks crowing muffled through fog, as adults rose from straw pallets still warm with night's dreams, faces etched by labor's quiet toll. The peasant's world was one of earth and sweat. Cottages clustered round the lords to men, walls breathing damp from rain-soaked thatch. Breakfast a hunk of rye loaf, cheese if cows gave plenty, washed with small beer brewed dark in crocks earthen. Fields called by terse bell, strips of arable worked communally. OX teams straining at wooden ploughs that bit soil reluctant in clay-heavy loam. Men furrowed furrows deep, women following with seed baskets, scattering barley or oats in spring's soft embrace. The scent of upturned earth mingling with wood smoke from distant halls. Harvests under Lama's sun brought scythes swinging hypnotic. Sheaves bound with straw twists, carts groaning homeward at gloaming, nutrition sustained through toil. Broad beans simmered long, cabbage from Caled plots, occasional bacon haunch smoked over applewood. Ale, life's liquid thread, safer than streams fouled by upstream privies, provided calories aplenty peasants ironically healthier in lean times. The nobles glutted on spiced meats, leading to gout as fiery grasp. Coroner's rolls record deaths in prime, struck by falling tree during coppicing, or drowned in vats during malting, misadventures mocking the vigorous. Diseases dogged, hernias from lifting sheaves, long scarred by damp barns rife with threshers' dust. Women wove parallel paths, spinning by rushlight winters long, weaving linens coarse for market stalls. Childbed recurred every 2 years, herbs like raspberry leaf teas easing labors in byres dim. But maternal mortality hovered 1 to 2% per birth, cumulative risks shortening spans. Midwives chanted low over swollen bellies, hands anointed with fat rendered from mutton suit. But porphyral fever claimed with fevered breaths reeking sweet sour. Class chasms yawned wide. Noble adulthood unfolded in great halls oak-beamed. Mornings abed till prime. Hunts on palfreys swift through misty woods. Falcons stooping on larks. Diets lavish swan roasted with almondine sauce. Hypercrass wine sugared fine yet dyspepsia from excess. Surfeit of lampreys felling kings, like William Rufus in New Forest shade. Nobles averaged 50 if infancy passed. records from peerages showing bishops tottering to 70s. Their celibate lives spared childbed woes. Daily rounds, mass in chapel frescoed, audiences in solar hung with arras, evenings to lute and tales spinning by brazier coals. Famine struck adults cruel. 1315's deluge turning bread to famine bread of peas and bran. Cannibal whispers in starved crofts, though rare is sin confessed. Black Death's shadow loomed larger, but pre-1348, typhus in lice-ridden garb. Influenza waves from trade routes east, quirky long livers, peasants like John, manor roll survivor to 60s. His secret perhaps moderation in ale, or genes hardy as oak. Sensory tapestry rich, market days clamour softened by distance, herrings smoked pungent on stalls. Fair maids hawking ribbons bright, evenings, mending nets by candle stubs guttering low, tales of saints murmuring against dark. Labour bent spines early, arthritis knotting knuckles by 40, teeth lost to grit and decay. Yet many toiled on, wisdom in wrinkles deep. As sun climbed higher in life's arc, tolls mounted the relentless grind yielding to noble lifespans versus common folk. But as seasons turned inexorably, whispers of plague winds gathered in the east.